Welcome to A Woman's Work, where you'll find ways to go from surviving to thriving while balancing the demands of womanhood in today's society.
Hello and happy Sunday, guys. It's Samara coming to share with you all once again from my heart to yours. I hope you're having an excellent week. I'm going to jump right into today's topic, which is how to create your own work-at-home job. So it's obvious. Everybody, well, maybe not everyone, but most of us wish that we could just get up in our pajamas and work from home. We wish we didn't have to deal with the commute to work, all the work-related things that come up, including the mileage that we put on our cars, the money we spend on gasoline. A lot of us go to our offices and we sit at a desk all day, and with all the technology out there, we wonder why we can't just do the same thing at home. And it's really a culture thing. If you have a work culture that values the time spent in the office over the quality of work, you may not feel like you can present your employer with a proposal to work from home. But I'm here to share with you how I've done that over and over again at 3 different jobs. The only 3 jobs I've really had since I graduated from college, and I've been successful every single time. So I'm going to share with you guys the 3 steps that I took and that you can take to create your own work-at-home position. A lot of us who are really, really interested in working from home will get out there and we'll do Google searches and we'll find all this information on these work-at-home jobs, and half of them are scams where we have to invest money up front and there's all these hoops to jump through, and at the end of the day, it's really just a whole bunch of smoke and mirrors. And then there are the coveted legitimate work-at-home positions, which I can talk about a little bit, that are, designed as remote positions, but it's really, really hard to get those jobs because there are so many people after them, and a lot of them require over a decade or more of experience in the industry before you're trusted enough to be someone who starts off working from home. So the alternative that I'm presenting to you is that you can assess your current role at your current job and you can possibly convert that to a work-at-home position. So before I get into those 3 steps, I'm going to share with you guys my story and why I think I am somewhat of an expert on figuring out how to negotiate telecommute agreements. My first job out of college was up on the East Coast. I had gone to school on the East Coast and accepted a job in that area because I really loved it. And then about a year and a few months into that job, I found out that I was expecting my daughter. So right away, I knew I had to get back to the Houston area. And I set the intention that I was going to move back to Houston to be close to my family so that they could help me with my daughter. And so I started looking for positions with that same corporation. It was a really big corporation, and was able to secure a job in the Houston area and do a transfer within the company. When I did this interview, I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter, and I tried to hide it because I was believing that no company was going to hire a lady that was going to go on maternity leave within a few months. And so I went and did the interview, got the job, did the transfer, moved back to Houston, started looking for a house, and I start the job, and the manager tells me that she knew all along that I was pregnant. So that was my first experience in the workforce, understanding that not everything that we believe is an obstacle is actually an obstacle. So the moral of that part of the story is, if you set an intention, if you have a strong desire, no matter what you think the potential obstacles may be, go ahead and go for it, because you never know. And if you just decide, if you're just 100% sure that no matter what happens, you are going to reach the destination that you're trying to reach. In my case, it was Houston. Then you can move forward fearlessly. And that's what I did. So anyway, I got the position in Houston and I moved down here. A couple of short months later, I was out on maternity leave and purchasing a house all at the same time. And when I went back to work, having a new baby, and I was a single mother, I was determined with that employer to negotiate some sort of telecommute agreement. So I had the standard maternity leave, but I was able to negotiate an agreement that I typed up. I think I did a Google search online, and I was able to present to that employer my proposal and it was accepted. So I was able to get more time at home with my daughter at that first job that I had here in Houston. So that was my first taste of approaching an employer with a proposal like this. And I was so terrified, so scared that even presenting that boss with this proposal was going to put my job in jeopardy, because I had already come down pregnant, left almost right away to go on maternity leave. I was also attending graduate school at that time on the company's dime, and now I was presenting a proposal to have a more flexible work schedule. Well, all of it was accepted, and I was able to create the type of work environment that helped me as a new mom and also allowed me to pursue a graduate degree. So after I had been on that job for a while, I was told by some of the mentors that I had picked up, and as a side note, it's always an excellent idea to have mentors on the job. People who share something in common with you, people who have a perspective that you believe can help you advance. You should always be having conversations about your career with those people on your job, because when they work in the same, at least industry or field as you, they have insight into the current happenings in that field or in your company, and they can give you tailored advice. Some people say, your mentors can be anywhere, but I think it's important to have career mentors that work with your company or work in the same industry or do the same thing that you do, because they can give you good advice. So I had mentors tell me that if I didn't want to get pigeonholed into aerospace, that I should try to find a job in the energy sector instead. The political climate was changing at that time. We were switching from a Republican-led government to Democrat, and the space program was in jeopardy. And so I had people tell me to go ahead and to secure my career long term, since I was kind of new to engineering, to switch to the energy industry, which is what I did. So I searched and found a job with a energy company and went to work for them. This job was slightly closer to home. By this time, my daughter was in daycare. It was still about, without traffic, a 45-minute drive to this place. And so I was spending in traffic about an hour and a half each way, coming from home and going to work. So I was spending 3 hours a day on the road. My daughter was basically in daycare from the time it opened until the time it closed. I had to leave work just in time to make it to the daycare before it closed. And so although I was grateful to have switched over to the energy industry, that commute was killing me. And my daughter was still very young. And so I wasn't able to spend a whole lot of time with her. It was during this time that I developed an intention. I said, by the time my daughter is in school, kindergarten, I want to be able to drop her off at school and pick her up. As a child myself, my parents didn't drop me off at school or pick me up unless there was like an emergency or they had to pick me up early on the weekend for a family trip. But I was always riding the bus back and forth to school. So I just had this idea in my head that, to be a good mom, I needed to be there to drop my daughter off and pick her up. So I started telling people that. That was a big thing. I started telling people, hey, by the time my girl is in school, I'm going to be dropping her off and picking her up. In the meantime, working for this new company was grueling. It was not an easy company to work for, which is a good thing. They expect the best out of their employees. But that 3 hours a day on the road just felt like such a big time suck. As a single parent of a young child, you can only imagine. So I felt that in order for me to be able to show up at that job another day, I had to do something. And so I presented my manager at the time with a proposal to work a few days a week from home. And the type of work that I was doing was all at the desk. I had to communicate with other teams, but not usually in person. We didn't have a whole lot of in-person meetings because each person on the team was kind of responsible for their own little projects. And so, although I worked with all men, there were no other women on the team. I felt bold enough, just because it was a matter of survival for me. I just wasn't going to come back if I couldn't arrange some sort of telecommute schedule. So I went to the manager and I said, hey, how about I work from home on Wednesdays and Fridays? And he immediately accepted my request. And so at that point, I started working 3 days a week in the office, 2 days a week at home. So I was saving 6 hours a week of being on the road. And so that was, my second taste of being able to set an intention, decide that something has to change, and be bold enough to approach my manager. So the unexpected side effect of this was that a lot of my teammates became jealous and developed a perception of me as someone who was getting perks that nobody else could get. The climate at the company at the time was not good because, like I said, it was not an easy company to work for. The fact that I was working remotely actually added to the amount of work that I was doing. And so although I wasn't doing that commuting 3 hours a day, I was home, but it was like I was accessible 24 hours a day. I was literally always in touch with my teammates, sending emails. I'm talking about, after midnight, but at least I didn't have to spend that time just sitting in my car. So I was actually able to contribute more to my team. But the perception, because I wasn't physically present 2 days a week, was that I was getting perks that others weren't getting. So, maybe in future episodes, I can talk about how to relieve some of those perceptions that people have of people who work remotely when you work on a team where not all of the positions are remote. So anyway, I did that for a couple of years. And then I decided that I wanted to move into a different sector of energy, renewable energy. So that's what I do now. I work in renewable energy. And so for a year and a half, I diligently searched for the perfect position in renewable energy. And with persistence, with, just, again, setting the intention and deciding that I was going to work in renewables, even though it took me a year and a half, I eventually secured a position with the company I've been with for the past 6 years, which is an awesome company. And I came on, and another side note to that was I decided I wanted a certain type of position. So my training is in engineering, but I fell in love with process improvement and doing things in the most efficient way possibly and gathering teams together. And so I decided that's the type of work I wanted to do. So not only did I want to work in renewables, but I wanted to work on improving processes and efficiencies in teams. And so that's exactly what I was able to do. I was able to secure that position in renewables. At this point, my daughter was 4 years old. She was still in daycare, and she was getting ready to start kindergarten the following year. And I still was walking around telling everybody, I don't know how many hundreds of times I made the statement, when my daughter starts school, I'm going to drop her off at school and pick her up from school. And so fast forward several months into this position, I think it was almost a year. Again, I presented my manager as my daughter was starting kindergarten with a proposal to work part of my day in the office and part of my day at home. Again, immediately accepted by my supervisor. And so I've been on that schedule for the past 5 years, and every single day, unless there's some sort of interruption to our schedule, I am able to drop my daughter off at school and pick her up in the afternoons. And then I come home and I work in the evenings to finish out my 8 to 9, sometimes 10-hour day. So I wanted to share all of that with you guys, and that's definitely the abridged version. If any of you are interested in more details about that, you can reach out. I wanted to share that with you because woven throughout were the 3 steps that I'm going to recommend to those of you who think that it could be possible to convert your current role to a remote position. So the 3 things that I did in every case, number 1, I started with an intention. Now, if you are working in an office and you're just lazy and your only goal for working at home is to get out of doing work, this really isn't for you. You're probably going to lose your job. I've seen that happen. But for me, it was all about creating balance. And so I was confident enough in my abilities as an employee to set an intention without being worried that the quality of my work would suffer. But my intentions were definitely very specific. In the first case, I just wanted to be able to extend the time with my very small child. In the second case, I just couldn't deal with the commute. I felt like it was just a huge waste of time for both me and my employer. And so I was able to set the intention not to deal with that anymore and figure out how to present it to my employer in a way that was palatable. The third time, my intention was to be there for my daughter when she goes to school and gets out of school. And I was able to successfully do that. So my point is, when you set an intention and you say that I'm going to create this type of situation, no matter what it takes, that's the first step to getting creative about creating your own work at home position. The second thing that I did in each situation was that I made sure to stay realistic about my expectations. And so there's three parts to this. There's the self-assessment, and I mentioned this, just a few seconds ago. Do you think that you're responsible enough to manage your tasks remotely? Can you do it? Do you want to do it? Do you enjoy the social aspects of being in an office environment? For me, I do enjoy some of the social aspects of being in an office environment. So I've always created schedules that allow me to spend part of my time in the office and the other part at home. I really can't imagine working from home 100% of the time, depending. That may be where I'm headed in the future, but I've been very comfortable working part-time in the office just so that I can have FaceTime with other employees. If you listen to my previous episode on how to build relationships as an introvert in the workplace, you'll see why it's important to me, because of my work style and my temperament, to actually have FaceTime with coworkers. And you can create the type of schedule that you want. Like, I spend probably 70% to 80% of my time in the office. You can create a schedule where you're only spending 10 to 20% of your time in the office, which I've seen work really well for a lot of people. At my company, there's been several people who, because their spouse got a job in another state or whatever family issue came up, they've actually relocated to other states and maintained their positions with the company. And in a lot of cases, their performance and contributions have increased dramatically. But those people, of course, are only able to spend a small percentage of time in the office. They come in, they travel occasionally just to get that FaceTime. So be realistic, assess yourself, and see whether or not you are able to be a contributor. I actually have some detailed assessments. I do consultations for this for people who are interested in creating their own work from home position. So if you're interested in getting a structured self-assessment to make sure you touch all the points, reach out to me and let me know. Also, to be realistic, you've got to assess your position. How much of your job can be done remotely? And you have to really seriously consider that as you're developing your proposal to submit to your supervisor. And you also have to present a win-win situation. If you go in to your employer and say, well, I want to work from home because I want to drop my baby off at school and pick her up from school, not going to fly. What you should say is that splitting your schedule or working from home a few days a week frees up more time for you to contribute. And you should also provide contingency plans should you need to veer from the schedule that you set up. If you need to be available for meetings or for company events, you need to have a plan to be able to be in the office during those times, and you need to make it clear that you're willing to do that. And in some cases, if you work remotely, your supervisors will require more structured feedback on what you're working on. They may want to hear from you daily instead of weekly. And you've got to be prepared or even offer to do those things if you're wanting to work remotely. For me, I love a lot of feedback from my supervisor. So if that's a request, then I don't mind providing that information on a more frequent basis. I just use it as an opportunity to structure my tasks better and keep track of what I'm working on, which is always great if you're looking to take a step up in the future. So present a win-win. Assess yourself, assess your position, and present a win-win. I have a structured way, like I said, of doing all of that, so you can let me know if you're interested. The third thing that I do in every case is I am prepared to hear no. So, of course, every time you ask for something, every time you present something, you propose something, there's always a risk that you'll hear no. Luckily, in most cases, I've always gotten a yes. There was a time in my current position, I'm working half a day in the office, half a day at home, that I proposed working 100% from home for a period of time. And I was told no because I was the only team member in our Houston location. And so I was the face of our team. And for that reason, I wasn't allowed to completely remove myself from the office for that time. But I still enjoy a lot of flexibility. During that time when I was needing to be away from the office more, I was able to kind of work that out to make sure that I still had enough face time in the office. But in every situation, you have to be prepared to hear no. And I've seen a lot of people get a no. I had one coworker at one job who came to me before she made her proposal, and she said, I'm going to go to so-and-so and I'm going to ask to work remotely 100%. If he says no, I'm prepared to leave the company. I just don't want to be in this area anymore. And she got a no. And she was prepared. And she put in her resignation and she moved to a different state. And I'm still in contact with her. And she's having a great life. For her, it was the same. She had set an intention and she decided that no matter what, she was going to create a new type of environment for herself. So you have to be prepared to hear no. You have to be in a place where you have examined the pros and cons of making this type of proposal. So those are the 3 things that you have to consider if you're interested in converting your job into a work from home position. Now, I mentioned that I was going to talk about positions that are set up as remote positions. So just as a tip for those of you who do the assessment of your position and you find that it can't be done from home and you're ready to start searching for something else that can give you a little more flexibility, the best website that I've found for that is called FlexJobscom. It is a paid website, but the companies that they have on the website are reputable. Some of them are companies that I've worked for before in their offices. Companies go to FlexJobs, and FlexJobs also seeks out companies when they're looking for people like engineers, licensed professionals, people with advanced degrees to take on these remote positions. And they offer positions globally, and they are top notch. 401ks, they do a really good job of screening out opportunities that are scams or that require you to put up money up front or that aren't legitimate jobs. And if you ever, and I've never, in the several years that I've had an account and helped other people find jobs on the website, I've never seen any position that was sketchy. So flexjobs.com is a really good website for those who are determined to create a more flexible schedule, but have, figured out that their current positions are not going to work for that. So if any of you who have listened to this and you found it interesting and you think you are the type of person and you have the type of job that would allow you to work from home, please feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, I do consultations at highfrequencywoman.com or highfrequencywoman@gmail.com or on the Facebook page, High Frequency Woman. And I'll be happy to share with you the process that I use for helping people, number one, determine whether or not this is something that they want in detail, make sure they address all the different areas. There's legal implications. Things vary by state. Your company probably has policies. I get into all of that with people. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week.
Thanks so much for listening in. If you like or even love what you're hearing, the best way to make sure this information reaches other women looking to experience more joy is to review and subscribe. If the things you've heard have made any impact in your life at all, leave a quick note saying what you love about the show. It could be your act of gratitude for the day, and it's your way of saying thank you for all the insight provided every week. Remember to check us out for more life design tools, tips, and tricks at highfrequencywoman.com.